Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Where the Scary Things Are. I'm your host, MonsterMash Ken, and with me is my co-host, the Mistress of Darkness, the Queen of Fright, the Lady of the Night, Muse. How you doing tonight, lady?
Oh, sorry. I was on mute
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
The show's already starting out great. I'm just doing my normal Muse screw up type of things. Just
Oh,
being
I
me.
gotta, I gotta put you on blast, dude.
Oh God.
So listeners, before we get into it, what Muse is doing before the show, we were talking about cats, and her cat started meowing in the background, and I was like, Muse, can you shut your goddamn cat up? And she told me that he's not going to shut up because he was in the middle of humping a stuffed animal. So I said, we cannot have animal bestiality on our show, Muse. So and then her husband starts laughing in the background. So we're already off the rails, not even 20 seconds into the show. But hey, it's Tuesday night. Everything's great. And our best friend, Chris, the creature Zisi, is back with us. How you doing, my friend? Wait, before you start going, let's keep your story a secret for a minute, okay? And then we'll get into it. But proceed, sir.
I am delighted to be back. Bit of a vacation. I was in Cocoa Beach, was in Savannah, was in a little town called McLennan, Florida, which I liked a lot, even though you can't even find it on a map. And what's best is we dropped the daughter off, and she is now gone for like 7 weeks. And I'm big into the empty nest thing. In fact, I never even liked our kids anyway. I am so glad they're gone. I've just disowned them. I am happy. This is good. And it's Tuesday night, and I'm back with you guys. This is just Nirvana.
Yeah, it gave HorrO a lot more to talk about. He took your time slot, so he took advantage of that extra 10 minutes.
I know.
And yeah, he definitely did. HorrO, how you doing, my friend?
I am good, living the Florida life here with where gators knock on doors instead of Amazon, where skeletons like my man here, Dexter, gives you haircuts and trims your beard. So fun stuff going on here.
I had to throw it in your face. So I was reading the sports page today, and that's not the actual newspaper. It's the sports page on the internet now. You can't say sports page anymore. It's the interwebs, the interlinks, the Googles. And they were making fun of Tua Tagovailoa. I can't say his name. Tua, the quarterback for the Dolphins, and he threw 5 interceptions today. And I love it because week 3, when I travel out to Vegas to watch the Raiders beat the Dolphins, they play against the Dolphins, and I'm hoping that he doesn't change form.
Hey, you can't trash talk the Dolphins to me because I was the first one to trash talk them. Because until they earn my respect, it will not happen. So yeah, I hope the Raiders run up the score on them until they learn better of what they're doing. Dexter should go. Dexter should go try out. Actually, he's going to be the next quarterback.
I should bring Dexter with me and put him in Raider gear. He'd fit in nicely with all the Raider fans, like
very true.
Yeah.
Let's
so
see
we
if
got
we can get him to be a Raider fan.
Yeah, he's halfway there. He's brain dead, so that's halfway there. So we got a really cool show planned tonight. If everything works out okay, we may have some technical difficulties or scheduling conflicts. We are going to be talking about a really cool movie called Blackstock Boneyard. This was released, I think, last week on the 7th. This is a really cool tale based on true events, true story, however you want to look at it, which I'll get into in a minute. A lot of blood, a lot of gore. Yeah, so definitely check it out however you watch your horror films. Looking forward to see what Chris has to say about it. And Chris, I want to also hear about your trip in Savannah. Yeah, so I'm going to get right into our segment, the Fear the Beer of the Week. Tonight I'm kicking it old school. I haven't had one of these in a while, but this is oh, you can't see it. It's a Miller Lite. The screen's backing up, but this is just a plain old Miller Lite, a fine Pilsner beer. So cheers to you listeners out there. Can't go wrong there. Takes you back to the high school days when you could only afford cheap beer. All right. So before I get into a little history, we're going to go and talk about what's going on this week in the horror history timeline. Jim Varney, you guys know him as Ernest, right? He was Ernest Scared Stupid, right? Plus Ernest Goes to Camp. It was his birthday on today, June 15th, 1949. This movie's not so much a horror movie, but you can, depending on how you look at it. E.T. was released June 11th, 1982. One of my all-time favorite movies, all time, The Goonies, released June 7th, 1985. Ghostbusters was released last week. We were kind of talking about it on our show, but I didn't mention it. June 8th, 1984. One of my other favorite movies, probably the most male dominant movies ever made, the testosterone filled movies ever made, Predator with Arnold, Jesse the Body Ventura, Carl Weathers, all these great actors just being men and hunting and killing, or an aliens being hunting them. I love this film. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. Yeah, that's about it. What else? Let me see if I see anything else in here. Yeah, that's about it. All right, so talking about Blackstock Boneyard, I kind of mentioned before that this was loosely based on true event or true story, so I had to look into it to get into the black hole of the internet. So this story is about, I guess, back in the South in the late 1800s. Obviously there's a lot of racism back then. A lot of speaking of cats, this one wants to get out. Okay, ruining the show. uh Two black men were accused of a crime they didn't do, but obviously black men back in the late 1800s, especially in the South, were not treated as equals. So things get a little screwy. So I had to look it up. I had to see, was this really a true story? Why was it based on loose events or whatever? So Thomas and Meeks Griffin, these were the two gentlemen. They were brothers and prominent black farmers who lived in Chester County, South Carolina. They were executed via the electric chair in 1915 for the murder in 1913 of 75-year-old John Q. Lewis, a Confederate veteran of Blackstock, South Carolina. The Griffin brothers were convicted based on accusations of another black man, John Monk Stevenson, who was known to be small-time thief. Stevenson, who was found in possession of the victim's pistol, was sentenced to life in prison in exchange for testifying against the brothers. Two other African Americans, Nelson Bryce and John Crosby, were executed with the brothers for the same crime. However, some in the community believed that the murder might have been the result of Lewis's suspected sexual relationship with 22-year-old Anna Davis. Davis and her husband were never tried, possibly for fear of miscegenation scandal. The Griffin brothers, who were believed to be the wealthiest blacks in the area, sold their 138-acre farm to pay for their defense against the accusations. That's crazy. Over 100 people petitioned over 100 people petitioned Governor Richard Manning to commute the brothers' sentence. The signatories included Blackstock's mayor, a sheriff, two trial jurors, and a grand jury foreman. Nevertheless, they were sent to the electric chair. Thomas Griffin and Meek Griffin were pardoned in October 2009. So I don't know how many years that is. That's well over 100 years. After Tom Joyner sought the pardons of his great uncles and the state appeals court in Columbia, South Carolina. Joyner learned about his relationship to the Griffins through research conducted for the PBS documentary African American Lives 2 by Harvard scholar Henry Louis Gates Jr., which also traced 11 other relatives. Their case was dramatized in our film, which we are talking about tonight, Blackstock Boneyard. So really cool stuff. The film, I want to hear what Chris says, but it's got its hits and its misses. I'm not gonna lie. I like the gore. I love the character, the creature characters. The girls were hot, but you knew which ones were gonna die right away. But yeah, I won't spoil it too much. But yeah, that's the creature feature of. I'm sorry, that's a horror movie flashback, and the fear of the beer of the week. Muse, you're up with the Sinister Six. You didn't give me a list today, by the way, so
I didn't know. You kept saying that. I remember you said that your computer was busted, and I didn't know if you were like set up to really do anything. So I didn't want to like bug you with it. So I'll send it.
You're
the
busted.
one time I don't do it, you're like, where is it?
No, that's okay. I was tight on time today anyway, but yeah, let's jump into Sinister Six. I'm excited to see what you got.
All right, so yeah, I'm going to catch Ken off guard today. He usually knows in advance, so we're gonna throw him a curveball, and he's going to be in the same boat as Chris and HorrO. So it's summertime, and I thought, we all love to go to the beach, and well, I don't, but I'm not even playing around the water, and this is why. So obviously I talk a lot about Jaws, and it's my favorite shark movie of all time. I love shark movies. I know Chris is with me, loves shark movies. I'm sure we all do. And I thought, we talk a lot about Jaws. So I thought, what about 6 shark movies that aren't Jaws? And I think that because of the popularity of Jaws, and I love it, I think that some really great fun shark movies get kind of swept aside a little bit. We don't really talk about them. And Jaws is great, but sometimes it's cool to kind of like give some love to some other very deserving shark movies. And this is just my list, so I'm definitely excited to hear what some of your guys' favorites are as well. But I'm just going to jump right in. So the first one is The Reef from 2010, and this was an Australian film from 2010, and it is about a group of friends who capsize they're in Indonesia, I believe. And the group decides that their best bet for survival is to swim to a nearby island. But alas, they find themselves stalked by a great white shark. So this is a very brief description, but I don't really want to give too much away. It's a great film, and I would strongly recommend you guys checking this one out. This is a really under the radar, underrated shark film. And I have seen it talked about on social media a little bit. So I know some of you may be aware of it, but if you love shark movies like I do, it's actually a really great film and definitely worth a watch if you're craving shark films. I always get in the mood to watch shark movies no matter what time of year it is. But for some reason in the summertime, I really want to like OD on them. So that's a great one to start with. The second one is Bait from 2012. And this actually, I'm mad now because this is Bait 3D. I didn't see the 3D version. So I'm like, ticked off I didn't see it because this would have been a fun one to see in 3D. But it came out in 2012. At first, I thought I had the wrong movie, but it is the right one. And just to give you a real quick rundown of what it's about, a freak tsunami traps a group of people in a submerged grocery store. It's just kind of an odd place to be stuck. And as they try to escape, they're hunted by white sharks that are hungry for meat. So again, this is a really, really high action type film here. And I would have loved to see this one in 3D. This would have been a lot of fun. So check that one out. I think I think you can rent it on Netflix actually as of right now. So like I said, this would have been fun to see in 3D, but it does say Bait 3D. So you may have to look it up to find it if you want to see that one. The third movie is The Shallows. This is a newer horror film that came out in the last few years. And I couldn't leave The Shallows off this list. I love The Shallows. I felt a little bit short. I think I had higher hopes for The Shallows. I did like it. I love Blake Lively. But I think there was something about this one that just didn't hit for me, but I still loved it for the fact that it was a shark movie. That's why it wasn't number one on my list, but it's still a great thriller and horror at the same time. It centers around a woman named Nancy Adams. She's a student, played by Blake Lively. She's a medical student, and she travels to a secluded beach for some very much needed alone time and solace. And despite, of course, the danger of surfing alone, Nancy decides to soak up the sun and hit the waves. And when suddenly a great white shark attacks her, forcing her to swim to a giant rock for safety. So she's left injured and stranded like 200 yards from the shore. And she has to fight for her life as the shark circles her in its feeding ground. And it's got some really, really tense moments and definitely has some great scares. I didn't love it as much as I thought that I would, but I still thought it was really a great watch. And I would definitely recommend it if you're a shark movie enthusiast. You got to at least watch it and judge for yourself. But it's definitely up there for me. Even though it wasn't my favorite newer shark movie, I still liked it. And I'll tell you which one I liked better. And I might get booed for this, but I got to say it. I like The Meg better with Jason Statham. This is definitely one of those films that I see a little division on. I really dug it. Jason Statham, either you like him or you don't. I think most people like him. He was really great in this one. And again, it was a great action movie. So I think some folks may have disliked this one a little bit because it's kind of heavy on the CGI. But it's a shark movie, so I'll allow it. What are you going to do? I mean, it's a megalodon. I mean, there aren't any megalodons they can film live footage of. So, of course, it's going to have some CGI. I still thought this was a fun one, though. So just a quick rundown. Previously thought to be extinct, a massive creature attacks a deep-sea submersible, leaving it disabled and trapping the crew at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. With time running out, a visionary oceanographer recruits rescue diver Jonas Taylor, played by Jason Statham, to save the crew and the sea itself from an unimaginable threat, a 75-foot-long prehistoric shark known as the Megalodon. Huge shark, great cast. I really love the cast, and I think the cast is what really made this one for me. It was a little heavy on the CGI, but again, it's a shark movie, so you got to kind of roll with it. And my fourth movie is actually a recommendation from HorrO, Omar, from before. And it's one I meant to see last year. I think it came out last year, last summer, as a matter of fact. Not Open Water, but Deep Blue Sea 3. And I knew there was going to be a sequel in here because I love sequels. But I remember HorrO saying that this was actually a really good sequel. He was really surprised at this one and he really liked it. And I'm a big fan of sequels. So this is one that I aim to watch. I still have not seen it, but it looks good. It centers on Dr. Emma Collins and her team. They're spending their third summer on the island of Little Happy, studying the effect of climate change on great white sharks who come to the nearby nursery every year to give birth. However, their peaceful life is disrupted when a scientific team shows up looking for 3 bull sharks. So this isn't great white, but still some great shark action in there. And it looks actually really promising. And I trust HorrO. He's got great recommendations. I've never been steered wrong by him. So I'm going to this is one that I recommend you give a try as well as me. And another sequel, of course, is going to be for my fifth movie, 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. This is the second movie. There was 47 Meters Down. It came out a few years before that. And I liked this one better. 47 Meters Down, the original, was actually really good, but I like the sequel a bit better. I like the story better. They're both great, but I like the sequel. This one centers, however, instead of 2 sisters, this centers on 4 teenage friends, and they discover the sunken ruins of a Mayan city, which is also a hunting ground for deadly great white sharks. Their air supply is steadily dwindling, and the girls must navigate the underwater labyrinth of claustrophobic caves and eerie tunnels in search of a way out of their watery hell. This movie had me on tensed up. There's not a lot of great twists and turns in this one. There's a lot of great moments where you're not sure who's going to make it out. It's kind of hard to predict at times who's going to survive and who isn't, because it's just kind of like whoever's going to survive. It's just a free for all because the sharks are everywhere. They get trapped. And, you're wondering, are they going to run out of air or the shark's going to get them first? It's a great movie. And my last one, I was kind of divided on this one, but I'm going to go with, I almost said Sharknado, but I'm not going to do it. I love Sharknado, and I'm going to, I got to give that honorable mention, but it did not make my list because I know I'll get booed out of here, but I thought it's a fun movie. But my last one is Open Water 3 Cage Dive. This is actually, this movie surprised me. I thought, okay, how good is this going to be? It's the third film. They might be reaching a little bit for this. This one was actually had kind of a lot of layers to it. It centers on three friends, and it centers on a couple. And there's like one of the guys is the guy's best friend. They're on this cage diving expedition, and it ends up being a whole lot more actually than just them being trapped in the water with sharks. And basically a rogue wave comes and flips their boat, and they're just, submerged in the water. They kind of like have to make out, kind of like make a way to stay afloat. They have like a little life raft that they set up. And, but the biggest part of the story besides the sharks is there's a little love triangle kind of going on in the movie. The guy's best friend and his fiance, he's trying to propose to, have a little tryst they've been, having on the side. And so it's just a matter of time before he finds out what's actually happening there. And so you got all that unfolding. Meanwhile, they're trying to survive in the water with these sharks circling, and they got this inflatable raft. It's crazy. So this movie surprised me because it had a lot of layers. It had a whole lot more going on than just being, surrounded by sharks. And so I highly recommend this one. It's Open Water 3 Cage Dive. Don't be scared off by the sequels, guys. There's some good ones out there. Not all great, but there's some really good ones there. So those are my 6, and I'm going to swing around to. I'm gonna swing around to Chris first because I know he's the shark fan. I know he's a guaranteed shark fan, just like I am about shark movies. So I know he's got some great ones that I did not mention.
We forget about Jaws 2 is actually a pretty good movie. More of a Babe factor than Jaws 1. And if it wasn't for Jaws 1, we'd all be going goo-goo over Jaws 2. But it's got the moniker of being a sequel to Jaws 2. How about this Australian film with Sharni Vincent, Bait? You think Sci-Fi Channel has wild plots? Great white sharks in the supermarket. Happens after tsunami. And everyone's climbing on the shelves because there's like 8 feet of water on the floor. And then the parking garage below is flooded. Great movie, originally in 3D. and I don't know, it's 2014 maybe, Bait, and I believe it's on Tubi. The original Deep Blue Sea, it's the ultimate movie for don't think you know who's going to get killed and who's going to survive. Throw that out the window. Samuel L. Jackson has the greatest half speech in movie history that motivates us all until, well, no spoilers here, but, and the reaction to that scene, I think that's bleeping great. So see that movie. Magdalene, which the Meg, I know, but Sci-Fi Channel made Magdalene a couple of really, really great scenes. Ultimately, a 75-foot shark running havoc. A couple scenes from the Meg taken right out of Magdalene. A couple of plot devices that are really, really cool. The Meg took out of Magdalene, a Sci-Fi Channel movie. All of the three-headed shark attack, the six-headed shark attack, this two-headed shark attack movies, priceless. I think Carmen Electra is in is in one of them, and she's just precious. And when she gets eaten, we're cheering. I don't know why. That's so much for a character, but it's Carmen Electra. I could go on, but one more, a Shark Exorcist, wild plot, lot of babes. It is, if The Exorcist hadn't been made in 1973, the movie Shark Exorcist would be a movie we talk about every day. Absolutely no doubt about it. And I know William Peter Blatty, he probably wished he wrote the story for this. I've got a list of about 50 more, but I'm going to go to Omar.
I love that you picked Shark Exorcist. I was waiting for you to say Shark and Sauce Women's State Prison.
Yes. Christina
Right?
Gwynn.
That title.
You want to talk about great actresses? Christina Gwynn is probably the Hedy Lamarr of the 21st century.
I love it.
Stick by that.
I love it. Great list, Chris. Okay, Omar, what do you have for us for Shark?
Okay. Well, we love shark movies over here, and there's a matter of fact I got some shark news. We'll save for the news, so I'll save that one for later. You mentioned Deep Blue Sea, part 3. Chris just mentioned that. That's probably one of the best ones. So disappointing was part 2. That was just terrible. But how can you forget Santa Jaws, the Christmas miracle that is Santa Jaws? And we all love all the Sharknadoes. I mean, who doesn't love all those movies? I know Ken loves Jersey Shore Shark Massacre or Shark Attack. If you've ever watched any of those Jersey Shore shows or whatever and wanted them to die, watch that movie because the sharks take care of it for you. And then a recent release classic, Sharks of the Corn, just came out recently. If you want to talk indie horror, that's it. And if you make, I don't like insulting movies, but if you make it through that entire movie, I give you an applause. But yeah, Sharks of the Corn. It's a true movie. I do not lie. Look it up if you dare. And I guess I'll leave more serious ones for Ken.
I can't wait. All right, Ken, what do you got?
All right. Before I go, I just want to shout out the chat room real quick. Luna, I love you. John, of course. I love you too, John. Jamie, ruining my show. He's in there. Luke D, what's up, man? The Muse is in there, of course. Who else? Chris, you're in there. Chris, you're in there? Wow, I didn't know you knew how to use that. There's other people in there, but they're just not talking. You guys can chat with us, Don't just be looky-loos. Am I missing anybody? I don't. Everybody that's chatting is there. So, hey, what's up, chat room? We love you guys. All right. So, I got to throw something out of left field here. So, obviously, before I get into my scene, I did a shark scene that terrified me, but I'll get back to that in a second. I just want to reiterate, and I've said this on a few shows, that I think that Jaws is one of the scariest movies ever made because it's terrified people to actually go into the water, even in your own swimming pool, because you're not thinking about anything else but Jaws. So I just want to reiterate that. If somebody were to ask me what's the scariest movie ever made, I'd say Exorcist and then probably Jaws. So it's one of those two, because I think in a real life situation, that shit happened, fucked everybody up, and it made sharks look like dickheads. So when I was little, I used to watch this TV series. I'm not going to tell you the series yet. And I was religiously watching this because I'm a big fan of this genre. And I used to never miss this show. And then I didn't realize that in 1966, they made a movie, and my mom told me like, "Oh, there's a movie of this series, not just um, the quote unquote books in the show." And I was like, "No kidding." So I watched this movie, and this man is climbing up from a boat into a helicopter. He's climbing up a ladder, right? And he's climbing up a ladder, and out of nowhere, this shark latches onto his leg, and he's punching it and he's hitting it. But lo and behold, in his belt, he has bat repellent, and he sprays the shark in the face and saves him. So that movie was Batman, the movie, 1966. Adam West, Burt Ward. Check it out. Terrifying shark scene. So that's my movie.
I love it. I love it. And I'll tell you what, that is terrifying. I remember that when you said I could see the whole scene in my mind. So that's fantastic. All great choices. I love the titles of some of these movies. I just want to go look them up for the titles alone. Sharks of the Corn. I feel like I've been challenged to watch that. I don't know. I just feel like it's the gauntlet that Omar has just thrown down that I'm going to regret, but I'm not bashing it, anybody, but just saying it. I definitely feel challenged. So these are movies I'm going to seek out for sure. They sound like a lot of fun. So that is my segment for this week. It seemed kind of timely. It's about summertime and we're all in the mood for maybe a little swim, except me and probably Omar. we're going to stay out of the water, but so that's my segment. So I'm going to hand it back to Ken.
Great stuff. Good subject. Lots of cool movies. There's one I want to watch, and maybe Chris or HorrO seen it, like Nazi Sharks or something like that. It's like got a Nazi riding a shark on the cover. I haven't got to it yet, but it looked kind of fun. I don't know if you guys.
Sky Sharks.
Sky Sharks. Yeah. That
Yeah,
looks kind of
I
fun.
failed to mention that one. I should have mentioned that one.
Excellent.
And then open water. Open water is really scary to me too.
Yes,
I
will.
think,
Yeah, diving. Why? No,
Yeah.
no, thank you. No open water diving. I'm good.
All right. Good stuff. I am going to pull rank HorrO. I know your segment is always next, but I'm going to let Chris go because I'm really curious to hear about his weekend. And what we'll do, Chris, is I want to ask you about your weekend. And then at the end, you can do your review of the movie. And then we'll wrap it up with HorrO and the 6 Killer Rundown. So, Chris, what happened to you this weekend, man? I want to hear.
Early on in our careers here, where scary things are, I think Muse used to ask, have you ever seen a ghost? She used to ask guests this, paranormal experiences, and the answer up till Sunday night was no. And there's a bit of jealousy in that because I'm always fascinated by the stories we have. Well, Sunday night, Janine and I, my wife and I, are visiting my brother-in-law in Savannah. I love my brother-in-law; he's terrific, and his main squeeze. A very lovely lady named Kelly, who I highly approve of, Curtis. So put a ring on her finger fast. He says, Chris, we got it for you. We know who you are. We got one of my good friends in Savannah runs the Best Ghost Tour. It is called Truth in Evidence. Truth in Evidence, Best Ghost Tour in Savannah. And there's probably at least a dozen ghost tours in Savannah. They start just before sundown. And so the four of us go out, and keep in mind, my wife has absolutely no interest in any of this paranormal stuff until Sunday night. And so we don't just go, hey, this is that, this is that, this is that. We all get the equipment. He gives us and furnishes us the EVP meters, that iPad thing that has the infrared stuff on it. These high-powered earphones where you can hear the tour 100 yards that way, and temperature things. And so we're all equipped with this stuff. And we go, and if you know the history of Savannah, which will play, it is fascinating that we were there just before I watched this movie, Blackstock Boneyard, because the two are so interrelated. But a lot of death, especially the Civil War. Not only did Sherman come through, which was bad news. When Sherman knocked on your door and you were in the South, you were dead. and typhoid many times over. You think this COVID thing is anything? Just in one city, 1,000 people dead a day, 2,000 people dead a day. We have no idea. Casey did a segment on it about a year ago of what a real plague actually does. And so Savannah's hit hard. They've got tunnels where they put all the typhoid people. When they have 3 days left and there's no hope for them, they put the nearly dead people in tunnels, or they buried them 3 days before they died. And so a lot of people were buried alive in Savannah. And so the graveyard, the old graveyards, they have borders, but just because they had to put roads in, many of the streets are over many of those dead bodies in the graveyards. And so we go to the grave, start off at the graveyard. I posted a picture on Instagram, I think. And we have these meters. And every now and then somebody's EVP meter goes off, just from the one light to all 5 of them and back again. And go, oh, wow, that's kind of neat. That's kind of neat. That's kind of neat. And I'm a skeptic, all right? And to say the least, but I'm fascinated by it. And so we go to Calhoun Square. And Calhoun Square has got an ironic history. I won't go into it right now, but below it are dead slaves, buried slaves. He says, hey, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so, and this is where it all happened. The slaves buried below there. By the way, that light post, don't go near it. Do not go near that light post, because I got pictures here. A couple of people went near it and blood was drawn. Whatever they did, they ticked off the ghost. And one guy had a picture of a gash on his neck. Another guy had a gash on his arm. And so it's like, where everyone goes, they go over to the light post. And in that house there, he tells the history of this house. Awful, awful story about a child who was accidentally killed there and his ghost. But so it is raining, by the way, but I don't care. It's raining. We're on vacation. And so it's we're going around with our equipment, and now all the meters are going on. Every 5 or 6 steps, they all go from just one light to like 5. And there's no outlets around. There's no wires up above. There are no old houses that aren't up to code anywhere within 100 yards of there. There's no reason for them to go off. So at this point, you're thinking, yeah, okay, but who knows? Who knows, right? I don't have an explanation for it, but who knows? And then one guy had Curtis, who's in our group, had one of those things you see the infrared images on, and he had the 2 figures, human-like figures over there, and there's nobody over there. It's like, who knows, right? And so I could tell you and take up another 2 shows, but Kelly, Curtis's main squeeze, who absolutely believes this stuff. And I'm standing next to her. I am like 6 inches away from her, and we're talking about this. And she's actually trying to communicate, hey, who are you? Are you 10 years old? Are you less than 10 years old? She finds out there's like a 10-year-old kid, ghost of a 10-year-old kid. Answer, make the EVP meter go all the way if the answer is yes. I don't do anything if the answer is no. And so we get this little kid. It says, are you lonely? Yes, And then we start walking away. And I said, hey, talking to the ghost, your buddy Kelly, she's leaving you guys now. And I didn't realize carnage would ensue, because I kind of like Kelly. If I had known, so we're walking out, and all of a sudden, we don't get to the exit of Calhoun Square. Kelly's she's on her butt. She's on her, she falls down. She's got a bloody elbow dripping down her wrist. She's got to leave the tour and go get a little medical attention. And people say, hey, were you pushed? Everyone says, before they ask, are you all right? This is the mindset of this group. Were you pushed? Were you pushed? And I'm thinking, I hope she answers yes, because if she answers no, she's going to get absolutely no attention. And she does the right thing. She says, I'm not sure what happened. And she leaves the tour. And it was just, I feel kind of bad. I feel responsible. I don't feel that bad. She ended up being okay. She didn't rejoin the tour later, but we saw her after the tour, and she looked like she was in good spirits. Spirits, get it? And so from there, we go to, and I don't know if you've seen that Clint Eastwood movie, the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. I think John Cusack's in it and Kevin Spacey's in it. It got the history of it, but that house is right there. It's like a block from Calhoun Square. And so we ended the tour there. But I tell you, there was a lot of activity. And we talked about the oldest active theater in the country is in Savannah. Not the oldest theater, but the oldest active theater, which has a history of fire, of death, of segregation. And of course, not now, but back then, 100 years ago, 80 years ago, 90 years ago, and especially at the time that this movie, Blackstock Boneyard, took place just a few miles from the setting of Blackstock Boneyard. So Savannah, absolutely one of the haunted cities in America. And I was there, and as a skeptic, we had all sorts of activity and a little bit of bloody carnage. And I wish you three could have been with me. You would have loved my wife, and my wife, who doesn't believe any of this, was so fascinated by it. And now she's asking me a question about demons. And we had a discussion, are ghosts really demons pretending to be ghosts? Because we all like Casper. We all like ghosts. So if you were a demon, wouldn't that be a perfect cover to have engagement with? And that little girl in the cemetery that grabbed onto Kelly didn't end well. So I'll just throw that out there. Probably a really good point to end on is be careful. Not just watching your steps so you don't trip over everything, but don't taunt things, even if you don't believe in them. Respect and don't get in over your heads. And Mike from Truth and Evidence, you're in Savannah, Truth and Evidence, unbelievable tour. And even if you don't like ghosts and paranormal, just the history aspect of it, the Civil War, what happened during typhoid, and especially now during the COVID thing, it is fascinating to see what they did during the Civil War and a few years after, when they had outbreaks of typhoid, and 1,000 people, at least a day, were dying at some points in one city. So anyway, that is a very short recap of Sunday night. And maybe over a few alcoholic and adult beverages, we can go more into that. And I'll even show you more pictures.
That's awesome, man. I couldn't wait to hear about it. Chris mentioned it on our little text that we have. And I said, Chris, I don't want to know about it till the live show. So I just have one question before you throw it on to HorrO. Did your wife believe any of it at all now? Or is she just like, it was fun and that was it, or what?
I'd say she has doubts. It went from nothing to, well, what do you think? Why did that happen? What exactly are those things? I got a good friend, Kirk. He's a high official in the FBI. We get together and Zoom about stuff just like this. And she just let me know, next time you Zoom with Kirk, I got questions for him. It's like, oh, I'm not the expert. Kirk is. Yeah. So, so let's just say stirring.
What was the name? Sorry, what was the name of the tour?
Okay, Truth and Evidence. And I think it comes up Truth and Evidence, and then Truth and the letter N, Evidence, Savannah, Georgia. It is I think they got a good Facebook page. My wife checked their Facebook page out. And the guy who runs the tour, he's a great guy. He's got that history down. And he, as far as I know, he's got, he's a lot older than he looks. Because he's like a hunk. I mean, Muse would be all over him.
Well, naturally.
Yeah. This guy's got it. You know, he's not as good as me, but this guy, I tell you.
All of a sudden, I'm the hussy on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we are not sexist at all, but no. I mean, if the shoe fits, Muse, you know.
Right. Yeah. I'm the wild tart on the show.
Well, if it's not her, it's her cats. So
right.
You know, it's gotta be one or two.
Yeah.
It's a whole other lurid tale.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I could do is get some links to that, and I
Yes,
can send them to
yes.
you, Ken. But Truth and Evidence, Savannah, Georgia. I don't know if it's Truth and Evidence or Truth and Evidence, but apparently they got a real good Facebook page, and the stuff that happened Sunday night might be up on that Facebook page. Because he put stuff on the Facebook page that happens during his tours. This isn't the first time stuff happened. So, it's
Well, let's jump over to. We'll come back to you in a bit so we can hear the review of the movie. But let's get onto the 666 killer rundown with HorrO and that son of a bitch Dexter.
Yeah, I'm taunting Dexter over here, so maybe I'll get doomed eventually along the line here. Um, so we touched on this last week in my long making up for Chris not being here. But I'm gonna jump back to the Conjuring because I wanted to talk about that and I don't think I finished. And I know Ken was kind of debating on the movie, and I know Muse is a sequel girl, so she'll probably eventually see it. And I know Chris, he's still waiting for his copy of Dinosaur Hotel. True movie, by the way. So, I don't know if he'll ever see this movie or not. But anyway, I'm going to kind of start off, for anybody who missed it last week, shame on you, but I'll start off with what I said because Ken was kind of asking about the movie and why some people were saying they didn't like it. And I still haven't gone out and read anybody else's reviews. But I'm going to give my opinion of that. And that is basically because the first two Conjuring movies, in my opinion, they kind of take on the supernatural and they're about ghosts and the supernatural, like Chris was just talking about, and about the jump scares. And that's where it really made its mark and went down that road. And people can debate back and forth. Do you like the Conjuring 1 better, Conjuring 2 better? Both fabulous movies. But I think where you come into part 3 is it kind of takes a different direction. And the movie starts off with an exorcism, which don't get yourself attached to too much. I know, Ken was talking about seeing the kid in the exorcism, maybe be turned off by that. That's just to kind of set up the story here. That there's more stuff that comes afterwards. So if you're kind of turned off by that, don't worry. The story goes elsewhere. But the story goes elsewhere in this time, and it doesn't really go to the ghost and so forth. This time, it kind of sticks with that possession kind of theme and what's going on there. And I'm gonna try to be as spoiler free as possible here. And it's just there's not we're also used to with the Conjuring scene, a demon or kind of spirit like that, and that kind of spurned off some other movies and so forth. But that's not really the case here. I'm not again. It's hard to say what's going on here without spoiling it. But that's just not the whole story here. So it is about possession and that kind of thing. And I think that maybe some people were, oh, it's the Conjuring. I'm going to get scared off my seat here and be jumping up and down. And because it was possession, there were some scares in it, but not in the same way the first two movies were set up. So I don't think anybody, everybody takes their scares in a different way. I don't think anybody is going to be, too many people are going to be falling off their seat here. I think this one is more, the other ones were great stories, but I think this one was really just all about the story here. Which, and a lot of exorcism movies are, they're just a lot about the story, about the person who's going through, the exorcism and the possession and so forth. So I think that might be one reason some people are split, but on the other hand, I've seen a lot of people love the movie. I certainly would not rank part 3 over the first two. And I think it's really, almost unfair to do. I think the first two movies are very fantastic movies. And, if somebody says part 2 is over part 1, we'll see what Muse has to say soon enough. But, I'm not 100% sold on that, but I think it's close enough. When I did my video review of this, I mentioned, one of the things I mentioned about this is the Conjuring 1 and 2. When you go back and look at horror history, it might be hard to look at it now, but, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, from now, when we look back in the 2000s, 2010s, and we look for horror movies, this is always going to be one to be talked about. One, because everybody likes it. It's a fantastic movie, part 1 or part 2, but also because of its important place, because it spurned off so many sequels. We have the Annabelles and so forth. So, and there's probably going to be other movies that are so-called going to come in the future as well. So because of that, it has such an impact on horror as it is. Um, as part three, you're still going to get terrific acting. Patrick Wilson and Vera, they're awesome. Somebody on Twitter, I think, mentioned to me, they were a little disappointed because they mentioned a court case and then kind of go away with that. That didn't bother me. I'm glad they didn't get in the wrap up. The Conjuring is not about a court case. It was an important thing to mention, and that's what the movie is based on, and based on obviously Ed and Lorraine's case going to do with the court. But that is not really the point of this. The point is to scare and whatever. If you're looking for something about the court case and more information, go to Discovery Plus, and watch the Shock documentary, which kind of goes a lot more into the case and a lot more on what's going on there and a lot more background of the story. I watched it; it's pretty interesting stuff. But those Shock docs, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know how true they are, how false they are. They're kind of building it up a little bit, but it does tackle the court case a little bit more. So if that's really what you're looking for, and if you were disappointed that wasn't in the movie, I would say swing over to that and kind of catch that angle, and they have that for you. I think one of the other things that's fascinating about The Conjuring, and you see it here in this one, and it's very important and it's very well seen that they do this in all three movies, is that no matter what is happening in any of these three movies, and no matter how dark it is or how evil it is, they always try to show you that love prevails, and that's the love between Ed and Lorraine. And I'm not one for the love story or whatever, but I think they really keep it consistent, and you're going to see that in this movie as well. And I think this one is probably tailored more toward Lorraine and those feelings that she has and stuff like that. She really takes a step forward in this movie, and Ed probably is kind of more like following along in the story. But I think at the end of the day, they continue with that point to show that no matter what is going on and no matter how bad things get, if it's possession, supernatural, or what, their love will prevail. So I think those are a few things about the movie. Like I said, there's a little bit more to be said, but I don't want to spoil it. I know you guys may see it in the future. Some people out there are still waiting to see it. So, those are just a few thoughts on The Conjuring, and then a third movie here. I still, sometimes we complain about, third movie, why? I still think The Conjuring is rolling. I don't think, this franchise is at the point where we start going, why another movie yet? I very much like, a trilogy is always nice. You can kind of wrap it up. But I think, there's so much there. There's so much story. And I think as long as the two main actors and actresses, they want to do it, I think the story should continue. If it comes a time where one of them decides, I don't want to do anymore, okay, then that's it. You can't really replace them. If you maybe want to do a single movie, just one, yeah, it's a stretch. But if you have to, do it. But if you're going to replace one of them, just don't do it. I mean, that's basically, where it has to end. And, I'd very much like to see at least 2 more movies, go for 5 and see what happens. And like I said, this is known for splitting off into other movies. So, we'll see where those go. So with that, I'm going to throw it to Muse, because I want to know kind of if she's seen both of the movies and if she really does think that the sequel is better than the original.
Well, yep, I do. I've seen both. I like part 2 better. I don't know. The first one was great, but there was something about the second one that got underneath my skin more than the first. I think it was just the story. I thought was a little more unnerving, but I love both movies. Both Conjuring movies are great. I love the fact that it's based on actual accounts, true stories. I always find things like that very fascinating when it's based on things that really happened and the history behind everything. I followed Ed and Lorraine Warren on a lot of paranormal shows for years. So I'd been aware of them. So I thought it was really cool when they started making movies to document these things. And I know they probably throw some things in that probably didn't happen for Hollywood purposes, but it's still really fascinating to me to watch horror movies that are based on true stories. Those always get to me more because it's the real stuff that can really get to you, just like Chris stated. When you realize there's something to the supernatural, and you realize that maybe it's not what you thought, and there's actually something beyond, it's really unnerving. So I always found Ed and Lorraine's chemistry really great. when I'd seen them on TV shows and documentaries and things like that. So the third movie I'm really interested in because I love possession style horror. It's probably one of my favorite subgenres. And so I'm looking forward to this one. And I love Vera Farmiga. I hope I'm saying her name right, as Lorraine. She's great. I enjoyed her in Bates Motel. Fantastic actress. And Patrick Wilson is Patrick Wilson. I mean, you can't go wrong. He's great. And so they've already got me with that. But I love the idea and the plot behind this story. And I'm with you. Let's make 5 or however many we need to make. I'm sure they've got tons and tons and tons of accounts of stories and cases they've been on. So I would be really interested to hear all of their stories, so yeah, I'm definitely all in for this one. I'm about this one, especially because I love the idea of the possession style horror. So I'm about this. So that's my take. But yeah, I like the second one best so far.
I knew it. Couldn't help it.
Starting to get predictable, guys. Like
So let's see what Chris and his ghost stories have to say about The Conjuring.
Yeah, my official answer is I like the original better because that's the type of guy I am. A couple of scenes that really have stuck with me with the first one is in Vera from Lorraine Warren is being talked to by her husband, and she's got sort of a strange look on her face. And then it shows what she sees. And behind her husband's like the corpse hanging from the tree. And it's like, oh boy, And the only reason she's not screaming out of her mind is this is her life. This is what she's got to deal with. And she had that look on her face like, was she horrified at the corpse hanging from the tree? Or was she horrified that she had this curse, that she would actually see that? I thought that was fascinating. But I think 2 was the Enfield story in England. Very interesting movie as a sequel because Ed Warren comes across as that scene when he is serenading with the Elvis music and the guitar to calm everybody down. What a tender scene that is. And the other thing that this has is something you didn't think they would go to, but the fraud element of it. Could this be a fraud? Could this be making it up? And there are a couple of instances where a couple of people might have some credibility problems, and it tackles it head on. And the movie is not afraid to address that. I thought that was very interesting. So that's my feeling. Officially, The Conjuring I put just a little bit above, maybe because it's the original. I'm big on the original.
Good way to go. All right, Ken.
I'm going to echo what Chris said. I think I watched the first one. I liked it. It was just okay to me. And then the second one, I don't even think I finished the second one. But I'm notorious for not finishing movies. But I do want to say we interviewed Ralph Sarchie. Ralph Sarchie investigated with the real Warrens. And I spoke to him offline a few times through Facebook Messenger, and he would talk about some of the stuff. And I think that the movies, because it's so Hollywood, and they have this high budget, and you've got these great actors, these brilliant actors. I kind of go back to it being something like more of an indie film. I wish they would have done something like that. But that's just the sucker in me. I don't know. But Sarchie would talk about, even in his book, about some of the investigations that they had together, where he was contacted or he contacted them. So, and there's also this stigma that were they real? Were the Warrens real? Like what they were doing, were they real? I don't know, and that's kind of makes it a little fun too. But the first one, and what Chris said, exactly what Chris said about that scene where the body's hanging from the tree behind her, Patrick Wilson, Ed Warren, that was a great scene. I just have no desire to watch the newest one. I don't know why you guys want more than one of these. If you guys are on drugs, I don't know. I'm sorry.
hey, I'm gonna make you watch Sharks of the Corn if you don't behave. Okay.
I'm gonna make you watch Batman.
Just calm down.
Robert Pattinson. We're gonna watch
sparkling ass chased by a shark. No way.
It's gonna be awesome.
Oh God, he's gonna throw little sparkles on the shark while make him jump off the ladder there. Oh man. Okay, so yeah. With that, we'll jump into some news real quick, and I'll make it as quick as possible. Starting off with remakes, Scream is officially done and wrapped up, and it's set for January of 2022. So yeah, we'll have plenty to complain about then. So we'll see what happens there. And Kevin Bacon is the villain in Toxic Avenger. So we'll see what happens there. I didn't ever think that Toxic Avenger would be remade, but it is. And then Kevin Bacon is in it to add to his arsenal of movies. Something for Ken here is that J-Lo, because we know he loves J-Lo, is coming to Netflix with a new movie, and I guess it's a sci-fi movie called Atlas. So he has something to look forward to besides Batman here. Nick Cage, because Nick Cage, just continues to do movie after movie. He has a new one called Pig, and the trailer should be out for that soon, and that movie will be out in July. We talked a lot about Sharks. Great White, the trailer and poster has been released for that one, and that one will be on Shudder coming in July as well. I've already seen it, but not really, can't really say anything about it, but something for you guys to look forward to. Tomorrow War, the final trailer was just released for that one. That one has Chris Pratt in it. And that will be released July 2nd, and that will be on Amazon. So Amazon is really banking their money on that one. American Horror Stories, that is the spinoff, just put out its first teaser. Remember, this is coming on FX Hulu. If they follow the same as American Horror Story, expect more teasers to come. So we'll see what they do there. And Netflix, this is for Chris, has revealed the cast for their new Resident Evil series that they'll be putting out. And I guess it's going to be 8 episodes, I understand, in about an hour each. And then, of course, there's a lot of Resident Evil news. We've got the game and an animated series. So Chris has got all the Resident Evil he can possibly have there. And I'll jump right to the recommendations here. Super Deep, that comes on Shudder in a couple of days. Now, if you like body horror, if you like the Thing, you're probably going to like this movie. The special effects are amazing. And then a movie that I really loved, I saw it the other day, Benny Loves You. Terrific stuffed animal movie, lots of blood and just funny stuff, hilarious movie. I believe that's out on DVD and video on demand and so forth, depending on where you are. But fantastic stuffed animal movie, not sharks, but stuffed animals. And I guess that is it for the rundown.
Good stuff, man. A lot of movies to go over. I want to hear Chris's review of the creature feature of the week for Blackstock Boneyard. So let's get into that.
Hey, yeah, fascinating movie for me to do, especially because this movie takes place in rural South Carolina. I was just on the other side of the state line in Savannah, and a lot of the settings were the same. The trees with the Spanish moss on them, and when I looked at the Spanish moss on these trees in Savannah, it was kind of spooky. You could see, and then when we were on the ghost tour and it started raining and there's a little bit of fog, it's like, this is perfect for like a scary movie. And then, the scary movie, Blackstock Boneyard, the director, Andre obviously thought the same thing, because that's what we get in this movie. The strength of this movie is the setting. It's a period piece, which is also the strength of this movie. It takes place about 107 years ago, based on a true case of 2 Black farmers who had about 138 acres of land, and greed is in everybody. And when you see somebody with something better than you naturally kill them and take it. Just look at the Apocalypse movie. Just look at The Walking Dead. Just look at it. It's an age-old. Just look at the Bible. The Bible brings up these concepts of the evil that we sow will eventually affect our future generations. They'll also be paying for our sins of today. And that's what happens in this movie, because it opens up 107 years ago, and you see, and I'm not going to tell you what you see, because from what you see, there's really no good guys in that scene. it's easy to say aggrieved people come back from the dead for revenge. Well, there's a question of how pure were their souls, and but these two black farmers are on trial for murder. They'll be executed in the movie wrongly. There's a whole history to it. Look it up. And anyway, 4 babes. And there's no nudity in this movie. So come riding into town, and now we get a true story with all the classic horror elements coming in. One of them, a babe, what's her name? Help me out here. Is it Lindsay, played by Ashley Whalen? Does a good job. Beautiful young lady. Gets a mysterious letter. You've just inherited all this money, and it's not from Nigeria. No, it's from a lawyer in South Carolina. Now, here's a lesson for all of you. When you get that letter, even if it's not from Nigeria, just throw it out. Because believe me, no good is going to come with it. Now, she thinks she has a plan. Let's just go see if it's legit and go from there. No, you've already made the wrong case, but it's a horror movie. It's like checking the fuse box, or let's split up, so let's go collect this money. And her 3 babes, buddies, go in to the small southern town, and the greed that happened 107 years ago, it's still rife in the town. And the ancestors of that travesty that happened 107 years ago are the players in this movie. And when the girls come to town, now I'm not going to give a spoiler regarding who Lindsay is, but her connection to what happened 107 years ago is a little bit, let's just say she had no idea what she was walking into, because what happened 107 years ago was a mystery to even her. And if she had known what had happened 107 years ago, she might have had a second thought about coming to town. And so the lawyer and the judge are hustling her to sell them the property because a major supermarket chain is coming in and they're going to pay them millions for it. So they stand to make millions if this lady accepts, and we don't know how much it is. I figure it's like 10, 20 grand or something. So they're happy to cheat this girl out of 10 or 20 grand because they're ultimately going to make millions, but they say, oh, it's a great deal. You got to take it. You'll be rich. And if you're a 22-year-old, 10 grand, you think, oh, I'm there. And then 6 months pass and you realize, where'd it go? It's called life. Anyway, that's my financial advice for today. Let's skip that. Well, just like Carrie, the ending to the movie Carrie, she signs it, and guess who comes out of the ground? Yeah, remember those guys from 107 years ago? They're back, and they're mad. And they're mad at the town. They're mad at anybody who's had ancestors who were involved in it. And they're big guys, too. They're not just these meek things. I mean, they look like they could play for the Dolphins. And 107 years out of the ground, they're even uglier. But they're big guys, and they're these corpses, and they go around, they slash, they rip, they pull, and people start dying. It's a massacre. There's a massacre scene in the movie. I love massacre scenes. You'll see it. There's going to be a lot of blood. And the question is, Lindsay, who you think this could be the final girl, what can she do? Because these ghouls, or whatever you want to call them, when you told the history, she's got to be the main target. And she's just purer than the white-driven snow outside. And so is there a way she can stop it? And the answer to that question might be a bigger answer than just how this movie ends. It might be a metaphor for maybe what we should all look at and ignore what the media is trying to do to us and pulling us apart. Ignore what Hollywood's trying to do. Ignore what the idiots on TV, the activists are doing, and go with the more, I don't know if you saw Charles Barkley's speech on the basketball game of the week. I think he said it the best, and I'm not going to go into it. You can get it on YouTube, but he ticked a lot of people off because he refused to get into, I hate, I've been aggrieved, I've been this. He had probably the most accurate answer. And I think maybe this movie does too. Because really, there were no good guys in this movie, but 107 years later, there's an opportunity to be the good guy. And maybe that's what this movie is not only imploring our hero to do, Lindsay, but maybe us too. So I'll leave it on that note. And hopefully we'll get to ask Andre more about that. I think I've hit it head on. But coming from Savannah with the moss on the trees and my ghost experiences was just the perfect movie for today.
It's a really good review, and it just fit perfectly. I was really excited to see how you intertwine both of those experiences, you watching the film and being in Savannah. So we're supposed to have an interview right now, but it looks like our guest had other obligations more important than where the scary things are. So will never understand that, because this is the place to be. Anyway, let's go ahead and bring it on home. If we get the interview, I'll put it on the podcast. You guys can check it out later. Anyway, Chris, go ahead and continue and do your shout outs, and we'll end to wrap up the show.
Shout out to Mike at Truth and Evidence. It showed us a wonderful night. And Mike, if you actually had my wife enthralled with the paranormal, you did a fine job. Me, I'm easy. I think this stuff's great. But my wife, oh boy. And also shout out to Kelly and Curtis. Thank you so much for a wonderful weekend. And Kelly, I am glad that little 10-year-old ghost girl did slash you and rip out your spine. So those were my shout outs.
Good stuff. HorrO, you're up. What do you got for us?
Well, speaking of ghosts and all that, just a reminder for those going back to Disney World, if you get in the Haunted Mansion, be careful of those ghosts that go home with you when you get off the ride. Not a good thing here. I think I still have some living here from many years ago. Anyway, my shout outs this week go to The Walking Dead's World Beyond's Annette Mahindru and Hal Compton for giving me some of their time to interview them about the DVD release of season 1 and talking about the show. And remember that season 2 will be on its way soon. Also, friends of the show, Justin Dyke and Keith Cooper, who I also got to speak with. We spoke with them months ago about Anything for Jackson. I got to speak with them again because the movie is now available on DVD, Blu-ray, and video on demand and so forth. If you have not seen that movie, that is a must. Came in my number 2 from last year. Just a fabulous movie and a must see. So I'll make sure that you catch that, and thank you to them for joining me once again. Also, this is on Twitter at Play Persistence. They let me give away some free codes to their new game that just came out. If you're listening live still in the chat and you're interested in one of those codes, just hit Dexter up. That's Dexter the intern, and I'll see if I can swing you over a code for that game if you can play that. And that's a code for on Steam. I'm not a gamer. I don't know what any of this means, but if you want one, let Dexter know, and then I'll see if you can hook you up. But that's those that are in the chat, of course. A little reward for them. So as always, love horror, love the horror community, and spread the horror. And on to the sequel girl, I guess.
All right. So this is actually a shout out I've been meaning to do for a while. This year has been nuts. And a while ago, I was approached to do a review of a book. And I think some of the guys also read it as well. I think Omar read it. It's called A Disgusting Supermarket of Death. And it's an anthology written by James C. Harbison III. And Harbison III. I want to make sure I said his name right. He gave me the book to read a while back, and I was supposed to review it. This year has been nuts. I did not forget, but I just wanted to shout out this book. I love anthologies, and I felt like this might be my chance to do a real 2-second review of it. If you love Creepshow and you like things along the lines of Creepshow, if you ever wanted to see or you ever wonder what Creepshow would be like if it was rated NC-17, this is for you. I loved it. I loved this book. It pushes the envelope. It pulls no punches. It is gory. It is shocking. It is everything a horror fan loves. And I can't recommend it enough. It is fantastic. And I'm actually almost done with it. I'm not all the way done with it yet, but I'm like, I'd say 75% done. I can't recommend it enough. So if you are a reader and you're somebody that loves a great anthology, I cannot recommend A Disgusting Supermarket of Death enough. It is fantastic. And so shout out to James C. Harbison III. And that's it for me.
Oh, good stuff as always. Thank you, Chris. Welcome back. And HorrO, you guys did an awesome segment. Muse, you're always a riot. I love picking on you. Shout out to the chat rooms. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. It's a short show, but it's short but sweet. If, like I said, if we get the interview, we will throw it on the back end of this. Shout out to all the horny cats out there humping animals. Do what you got to do. Till next week, my friends. Keep it scary.